Hey everybody, welcome. This is just a sound check. I just want to see how the audio is. I've got some new, this is what it's like when you're a guerrilla live streamer. I don't have, all the bells and whistles that NBC, Fox, Tony Robbins, or Oprah has, but I will bring you some shit that will blow you out of the water. Just as tough and just as rugged, I think. But anyway, I want to do a little bit of a sound check here, so I'm just going to check this out really quickly. This is what it's like when you're a guerrilla live streamer. I don't have, all the bells and whistles that NBC, Fox, Tony Robbins, or Oprah has, but I will bring you some shit that will blow you out of the water. Okay, looks like we're good. So welcome to Mindset Live. I am your favorite author, Peter Nez, and today what we talk about, if you're new to my channel, really quickly, what we talk about here on the show is everything having to do with growth mindset, positive mindsets, getting the internal right, because if your internal ain't right, the external doesn't mean jack. We work on everything in our lives. We work on all of the finance. We work on our education. We work on our children. We work on our home. We work on our physical. We work on so many things, but we forget that no matter how much the external gets built up, if the internal house is crumbling, hasta la pasta. Anyway, today's show, I'm so happy to have you join me. Today's show, we're going to be talking about, the title of today's show is entitled Be Nobody. And what does that mean, be nobody? Well, I had an interesting Periscope earlier today, and it was really something that I felt was powerful. And let me see if this is still working. It doesn't, okay. So I had an interesting Periscope experience today. And what happened was we were talking about this idea, this concept of this go-getter concept, this go-getter sort of mentality, and this idea of, this push and shove world, and how everybody's trying to make a loud drop in a huge ocean, trying to make a loud splash. And the very act of that, what does that encapsulate? The very, notion of that, what does that encapsulate? Before I get going, so today we're going to be talking about, if you've been following the show, if you've been following my channel, we talk about growth, positive mindsets, everything about self-discovery, emotional intelligence, self-investigation, finding out who you truly are. Discarding the unreal so we can find the real. If you discard all the unreal, if you discard all the garbage, if you discard all the normal kind of sort of psycho-chaotic static that happens inside you, if you discard all of that, I ask you, Nez Nation, what remains? What remains? Please do me a favor. You see the tag right there. Please subscribe. Please hit the subscribe button so you can always get notifications of when I have some new shows and when I'm going to be posting some new videos. I also post videos on writing, communication. I'm an author. I'm a speaker, social media nutbag, digital storyteller, and a writing professor at several of the top writing programs here in Southern California. And so what we try to do on this show is the same thing I try to do in my classroom, the same thing that I do in all my speaking engagements, is have a transformative experience where you can engage with me. I'm looking at my monitor here. I can see your comments. I'm hoping to God that the audio is coming in well. I've tested it. It seems like it's doing okay. And today's topic of the show is entitled Be Nobody. Be Nobody. What the world does that mean? What do you mean be nobody, Professor Nez? What could you possibly mean by that? Well, I'm going to talk to you about it, and I think it's really, really interesting. First things first is that, one of the things that I think really gets us into a lot of trouble, and I'd love to hear your comments on this, and I'm on the monitor here. Let me go ahead and share this out really quickly. I'm going to share this with my kind of social media, because you guys know I'm a social media nutbag. Let me just share this with Twitter and Facebook. And then I will start the show. Didn't mean to do my little Gary Vee impression there, but that's what happened. And, you know, again, please hit the subscribe button. I would love for you to, this is my handle you can see on the screen, @PeterNezAuthor. You can subscribe to all of my channels. I'm located on, if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see the icons. You can follow me on Snapchat, which I have my Nez on Wheels show, which is very similar to this show, talking about kind of real issues, real stuff that's happening in your life, real things that I think that we're not scaling in our classrooms, real things that I think we're not talking about, you know, more so in our work life, our personal life, and just balancing that and just trying to get to the bottom of what it means to be human. That's really what this show is all about, trying to get to the bottom of what it means to be human. Is Professor Nez, is your favorite author, Peter Nez, an expert? Absolutely not. But I've gone through the hell of this dude, and I want to share my experience, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too. So feel free to chat, feel free to comment. I would love for you to comment and let me know how the audio is, let me know how the video is, if it's coming through okay. That would really mean the world to me, and I can chat back with you. Let me just finish my sort of sharing here so I can see if other people would love to join, and that would be fantastic. So let me just send some stuff out, and please feel free to comment. Please feel free to join me. I would love to hear from you. We're talking about the title of today's show, and just to kind of bring up that title card again on Mindset Live, this is your favorite author, Peter Nez. Today's topic of the show is Be Nobody. What in the world does that mean? What could Be Nobody mean? What could Professor Nez possibly mean by being nobody? Well, we're going to talk about that very, 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 very shortly. I'm just almost done sharing this out. I wanted to check the audio. I've got a brand new audio equipment, and I'm trying to test that out. I would love to hear your comments. Let me know how it's coming through. Let me know if you can hear. And let me know how that's coming in. So what could it mean? What could it mean? Be nobody. Well, obviously I don't mean literally be nobody, that's for sure. One of the things that I thought was so interesting, that when I was doing this panel discussion at, writing professor as well, we do these panel discussions on kind of macro issues that our students are facing and that just we as human beings are facing, and you know how much of a champion I am of communications. The whole basis of this show is so that we can come and talk to each other about what's happening in the world and try to just really understand each other. What I think is the greatest disease that's plaguing mankind is misunderstanding. And we're talking about the 1,000-year-old war that's happening in the Middle East, more than 1,000-year-old war. God knows how long it's been going on. The turmoil and the unrest, all because people really misunderstand each other. They have no clue. They have no idea that they're all brothers and sisters and they're killing each other. This idea of be nobody kind of ties into this concept. And there was a little girl there, I'll never forget. She said a beautiful thing, because we were talking about what are some ways in which we can approach this? What are some ways in which we can at least get the conversation going? And this brilliant young woman said, the reason why there's so much death, the reason why there's so much chaos is because we see other. We see other. What does that mean? We see other. Well, when you look at me, you see man, you see dark hair, you probably associate some kind of heritage, you see other. You know, when a Palestinian sees a Jew, they see other. When a Jew sees Palestinian, they see other. What she was really getting to, what the sort of crux of this episode of Mindset Live is all about, is this idea of other, this idea of separation, this idea that we're all separate beings, that we're all, we tout our flags, we have this hyperbolic national pride, and we have this. And there's nothing wrong with loving your country. There's nothing wrong with loving where you're from. But when it gets to this point where it's like us against them, you against me against you, our borders have this meaningful, our borders take on this, real tangible shape and form that really separate us and create this rift. And that's just a real seed in the destruction and seed of the conflict of how we view each other. We see other. We need to find a way to stop seeing other and really getting to the bottom, really getting to the truth of the matter, that we're all in this together, that we're all the same, that you are me and I am you, and we're all human beings trying to do the best we can. And this is where emotional intelligence comes into play. This is what this channel is all about. This is what Mindset Live is all about. This show is having some empathy, being able to view the world in another person's shoes, through another person's shoes, through another person's eyeballs, and seeing what they see, feeling what they feel. They too have desires. They too have fears. They too have families, have children, have mothers and daughters and sisters and brothers and fathers, husbands and wives, and they just want what's best for them. They just want what's best for their family. Everybody's trying to do the best they can. Nobody knows anything. Nobody knows anything. It's just the truth. Let's get to the truth. Let's get to the heart of the matter. Let's cut all these, idle kind of baby steps, and let's get right down to the trunk. All these little branches, you're clipping all these little branches. Let's cut the tree of misunderstanding right at the trunk. And let's really get to the bottom of it. I'd love to hear your comments on this. Being nobody really entails that we can really come together and see each other for who we really are. That we're really not that much different. We can celebrate our differences. We definitely have differences. But this concept of being nobody, it's kind of an un-Western sort of thought. It's an un-Western sort of concept. And it's just really about not kind of pushing and shoving through this world and trying to be the loudest voice, trying to be the biggest splash. And that we're all waves in this ocean. We're all waves in this ocean, and the source of that wave, the source of all of these waves is exactly the same. That deep down in our core, we are nobody, we are one. And this is not some kind of cynical Oprah Winfrey type of concept. This is not some kind of idea of, this isn't a bumper sticker ideology. This isn't something that, doesn't have any value. But if we can truly, and this will make, if we can adopt this mindset, of trying, just trying. I mean, I think the real kind of thing to start off with, the real kind of, the real practical experiential way just to start is to just start seeing everybody as you, seeing what it's like to be them. Imagine what their lives must be like. Don't think that you see all these pretty people and their, shiny cars and their shiny clothes and their brand new jobs and skin jobs and little tucks and lifts, that they put on this, kind of charade that they're perfect, that they're happy, that they're fulfilled. Think of the kind of mentality that goes into that. What kind of person would care so much as to go under the knife in order to physically appear younger, physically appear well-to-do, physically appear superior in some sense, or this false ideology of superiority? The idea that is behind this live stream, the idea that's behind this show of Being Nobody, really has to do with not obviously being some kind of hobo and just saying F it and just living like a bum and feeding off of people and mooching off of people and throwing away your desires, your dreams, your vision. Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. If anything, it's adopting this type of mindset will allow you to reach your vision with, I think, much more clarity, with much more foresight, and much more kind of execution, I think, and productivity towards that vision in a healthier way, a healthier mindset, a kind of a sort of another mantra to this show and a mantra to this this channel is the idea of a healthier way of life, a healthier internal versus the external. And it's a very paradoxical way of thinking, this idea of being nobody. By being you, by discarding the unreal, by really understanding that we are all in this together, we're all on this planet, by really understanding that we all have our own kind of way of looking at things, and we all have different experiences, but at the core, we have so much in common, and that we are all brothers and sisters if you really, really think about it. And, one of the things that's happening, I think that's really kind of, I've talked about this with my students before, the idea of race, the idea of looking at skin color as some kind of significant, differential. It's just absolutely absurd. I mean, there's only two factors that contribute to the tone of your skin: latitude and climate. That's it. People from the north, where my wife is from, Scandinavian, German, Nordic background, very, very light featured, light hairs, light eyes, not a lot of sun. The climate produces a habitat, an atmosphere with very little sun or very little exposure to that light. Lighter skin, lighter tone. You get more towards the equator, you get more towards my background, my people, my ancestors. Get closer to the equator, darker features, darker skin, darker tones, more sun. You go below the equator, what do you have? A lot of sun, hence darker toned people, darker skin. It's just as simple as that. Latitude and climate. But if you line up all those arms of all those people and you take a knife and you cut everybody's arm, the same color will come out. Red. The same color blood. Nothing different at the core, deep in the core. This idea of being nobody is really being everybody. By really seeing each other for who we are, by really understanding that there is a spot and a place for everybody, that this planet is abundant, this life is rich, the good earth provides, the universe provides, and there's no need to make those imaginary borders. There's no need to make those, walls, those imaginary walls seem so real, which the mindset makes it real. I mean, have you ever looked at a map? All of those lines that separate us, all of those so-called borders that separate us, none of it's real. It's all an illusion. It's all imaginary. I'm from Texas, I'm from New York. It's like, Viva la France, They're all imaginary borders. They're all imaginary borders. I love I'm going to kind of invoke Carl Sagan, the kind of blue dot theory, where he, showed this photo from deep space of Earth and this tiny blue dot, which is Earth, and that everybody, every king, every death, every family member, every important person, every non-important person, all came from that blue dot, that little insignificant blue dot in the vastness of this gigantic, unfathomable universe, this tiny blue dot. How could you think you're so self-important? This relates to self-importance as well, and how that can hurt, not especially hurt your professional. I don't care if, people hold Steve Jobs on this level that, he was this real difficult person to work with, and that's what happens when you're a genius, is you have to run over people and you have to be some kind of a-hole. I couldn't disagree more with that concept. I couldn't disagree more with that concept, and I think there's a lot of people who really, really, suffered under that sort of regime, if you will. And that's exactly what that was. Was this sort of tyranny. Even though I'm not taking away from the great things that he did, and the thing that I'm broadcasting from right now is a product of his vision. But that doesn't just sort of give you a license to be an a-hole, I don't think. And I think even in the twilight of his life, when he was experiencing his, illness and going through that, he really had there was a lot of questions posed to him. What would you do differently? And he said a lot. I think there was a lot of things that he would have done differently. And I think the way he ran his company, I think the way that he communicated to people, I think the kind of mindset that he adopted and how he engaged with his, family, especially his family. And I think there's some definite evidence that his family life, bared the brunt of his work-life balance. And so, be nobody. Be nobody translates to being everybody. And if you're everybody, you're healthier. If you see everybody as a friend rather than a foe, if you see the world with kind eyes, the world will be kind back. What you operate under internally will reflect externally. Try this out. I would love your feedback. This is not a spiritual show, although it might seem like that at times. This is a very practical show where we really look at the functioning of the mind. We really look at the functioning of human behavior, and we see what are the optimal kind of ways in which we can be a healthier being. It's not even about success. It's not even about being number one or being the best you. It's just about being a healthy you first and foremost. And I think that bleeds into everything else you do in your life, is adopting a healthy mindset, understanding how this thing works, understanding how your behavior impacts others in a real practical, reality-based way, I think makes all the difference. I'm losing light here, aren't I? Can you guys see me? Hello. Be nobody doesn't mean literally be nobody. Being nobody doesn't mean stop dreaming, stop working, stop hustling. I work 24/8. You can ask my students. I teach about 11 classes, 10 classes per semester. I'm all over the map, giving lectures, giving speeches. Not bragging at all. I think there's plenty of people out there that work a lot harder than I do and have tougher gigs. But my point is, by me titling this show and the concept of this show, the subject of this show being Be Nobody, does not translate to giving up. It does not translate to, just calling it quits and being nothing. You're everything. By being nobody, by remaining quiet in here, by really understanding that you don't have to compare yourself to anybody, okay? You don't have to compare yourself to anybody, and that when you hurt me, when I hurt you, I'm hurting myself. When you hurt me, you're hurting yourself. Imagine what kind of world we can live in where everybody adopted this type of mindset. What every other person they saw, every other person they encountered, they saw, instead of other, they saw themselves. By being nobody, we can truly see ourselves in each other. And this has a lot to do with ego as well. Now we're really getting cooking here. We always want to try to be better. We always want to try to outdo. The kind of Western ideal is really all about kill, 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 ask questions later, conquer, divide and conquer, trudge on, fight, destroy, very aggressive vernacular, very aggressive mindsets. What's wrong with taking the path of least resistance? What's so absolutely derogatory about that, or what's so terrible about that? What's terrible about just remaining quiet within your own space and really not seeing everybody as this competition, but really seeing everybody? I think that there is a possibility for win-win situations. A lot of people have this mindset of win-lose in business, in marketing, in social media, in education, in science, technology, in politics. My goodness, wait till you see what's coming up on Monday. Wait till you see what's coming up on Monday with this first debate between Trump and Clinton. I would love to see who. I think the real difference is, and this may have a beautiful kind of unplanned benefit of this live stream. I think that the person who is really internally composed and does not allow the external to have such a major influence on their internal will win. And I think that they will not make the other candidate feel like they lost. It will be an inclusive, participatory engagement. Participatory being the operative word. That if this debate coming up on Monday really had any value, if it's going to have really any value, as I always say with every discourse, with every communication, with every talk, chat, conference, what have you, even just a one-on-one phone call, texting, the aim of it all should be to get to the truth. The aim of it all to be to unravel and unveil the truth. Not about using gimmicks or tactics or stratagems or trying to, falter the other or trying to make the other individual eat their words, or as most people do in most conversations, try to prove the other individual wrong. Most people don't even listen to each other. We're going to see a real lack, I think, of listening happen in this first debate. Be nobody. Be everybody. Be nobody. Don't worry about external. Don't worry about being somebody. Don't worry about being somebody. It takes great effort to be somebody. It takes monstrous effort to be somebody. But it takes goose egg. It takes zero goose egg effort to be yourself. You ever notice that? It takes zero effort to be yourself. But we worry so much about how others will perceive us. We worry so much about failure. We worry so much about status. We worry so much about being liked. We worry so much about looking bad or looking foolish. We worry about that constantly. Especially the ones who think they can fool us. I don't care, man. I don't care what anybody thinks, man. I just do my own thing, man. Screw the world. Those guys, they care the most. Anybody who kind of goes around kind of gallivanting that sort of jive really cares the most, really cares more than anybody. Be nobody. Be everybody. Be yourself. And not in a bumper sticker way, not in an Oprah Winfrey kind of way. No offense to Oprah. I mean, I don't judge anybody, but I mean, there can be this sort of commercialization of spirituality that's sort of been going on, or this commercialization of just practically looking at some mindsets. That's why, another catalyst, another reason why I was so compelled to start this channel. I'm on every social media channel you can imagine, pretty much. Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm on all of them, This is a brand new channel, but I felt compelled because I just kept seeing this this is the kind of things, I was inspired to do this, and I love talking about this. I feel that I can have something worth sharing because I've gone through the hell of being a prisoner internally, while externally everything was going cookie cutter, crystal clear, perfect, or at least appeared to be, but internally I was living in the hell of hells. There's no hell that compares, as William Blake said. The marriage of heaven and hell. There's no comparison to the internal cell. The external prison cell doesn't come close to the internal prison cell. Doesn't come close. We're talking like David and Goliath. Night and day. Literally night and day. And so, there's been this sort of commercialization, or this sort of watered down version. You hear a lot of talk about mindfulness. You hear a lot of talk about transcendental meditation. You hear a lot of talk about, being, and you hear a lot of talk about, meditation and all its shapes and forms and spirituality. And I think that there's been just a lot of clutter out there that really just seems to be, there's some that I think that are really powerful, but for the most part, a lot of it seems very intellectual. A lot of it seems very intellectual, and that's the last thing that a real kind of effective sort of conversation or a real effective approach to understanding the hell that this can sometimes be. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use your mind, or don't get me twisted. I don't want to be unclear. The natural mind, your kind of natural state, your natural kind of sort of intelligence is a beautiful, very much so necessary entity. But I'm talking about that eternal doubter that lives in here. I'm talking about the mind that can really trap you. I'm talking about the ego. I'm talking about mindsets that are damaging, that are unhealthy, mindsets that consume you in this swirling tornado of cyclical thought that can ensnare you and entangle you and get you all fluttered and flustered. That's what I'm talking about. That's what this show is all about, is just approaching that with a real healthy kind of practical, experiential discussion, period. And I think words are powerful. I'm an author, so I have a great respect for language. I have a great respect for words. And if I can share something that's inspiring, God willing, God bless. Anybody out there have any thoughts? Anybody are there any questions? I'm going to get going now. I've got to go pick up the kids. I've got to end this now. We've been going for a good amount of time. Be nobody. Don't worry about being somebody. Don't worry about being everything. Don't even worry about really anything. You just stay in here. Stay quiet in here. Try to get as quiet as you can internally. And don't let the noise, don't let the static, don't let the chaos, don't let the media, don't let the news, don't let me, not even me. I read a really great sort of, quote recently by one of my heroes, Alan Watts, who said that, the real purpose of any kind of discourse on any sort of, God, I'm going to say the word, even though I'm not really a big fan of the word, but philosophy or anything like that, which religion can be, I guess, construed as a philosophy too in some instances. But the great aim of any kind of discourse or any kind of discussion or any kind of exchange like this, the great aim should be the transformation from anxiety to laughter. That should be the great aim of any great idea, any great innovation, any great conversation, is the evolution from anxiety to laughter. And when you're laughing, when you're in your natural state, when you're not worried about being better than everybody else, when you're not worried about making sure that your country is number one, we got to be number one or else. When you're not worried about proving yourself all the time, when you're not worried about comparing yourself all the time, when you're not worried about this type of mindset, where has it gotten you? Where has this comparative mindset gotten you? Where has this mindset of always trying to outdo? There's always going to be somebody better. There's always going to be somebody who's not as good as you. You can't please everybody, so you might as well not try to please anybody. It's impossible. You could your whole life try to please everybody. It's impossible. It's literally an act of futility. You cannot please everybody. So you might as well not try. And there's this beautiful freedom there. There's this beautiful release there. Let the laughter rain. Let the laughter rain. Understand this. Feel this. Confirm this within you. Experience this. It cannot be intellectual. This show is not intellectually based. This must be experiential, meaning it can only be confirmed through your own conviction. It can only be confirmed from your own experience that you fully feel. Everybody can talk about it. Anybody can talk about it. Experience it for yourself. I would love your feedback. I would love your feedback. And I end every show, at least I'm going to now. From now on, I end every show with this quote from my great master, my great teacher, Walt Whitman, one of my favorite authors, if not my favorite author and master of all time. Dismiss anything that insults your soul. If anything I'm saying doesn't have that transformative ability to send you from anxiety to laughter, dismiss it. Throw it in the garbage. You know what, Peter Nez? You know what, Professor Nez? None of this, all this stuff is bullshit. Beautiful. Discard it. Discard it. Don't trust me. Don't take my word for it. Because these are just words, and they are powerful, I hope, and they have some kind of impact, I hope, because I love sharing. I'm a storyteller at heart. First and foremost, I'm a storyteller. Huge fan of these mediums, obviously. I'm a huge fan of these platforms, obviously. But if it doesn't jive, if you don't feel it course through you, if you don't feel it with conviction, if it insults your soul, then you dismiss it. You throw it in the garbage. Nothing I say, you would be just fine without any of these words having an impact on you. Your life will be just fine without any of these words, any of these shows having any impact on you. Because the greatest impact, the greatest teacher of all time is life. Life will always show you, if you pay attention with the right pair of eyes. Attention is key. Be nobody, be everything. By being nobody, you are everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And thank you so much for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button down there. The red subscribe button, I would really, really appreciate it. And go to, you see my tag there, at Peter Nez Author. Go and check me out on my other channels, my Facebook author page, my Instagram account where I quote excerpts from my books. You can type in Peter Nez on Amazon. You can find my micro-narratives that really relate to everything that I'm talking about on my show. I would love your support. I would love your feedback as always. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and this has been another episode of Mindset Live, and I'm going to keep bringing it. I hope to see you guys very, very soon. Thank you so much.